let's look at the order of operations. Put your title across the top. Include your page number on these notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this chart with 4 steps or 4 items across the top, not very large, so that I could have some space on the bottom for some examples. Okay. So we always start with inside the parenthesis. Then we work with our exponents. We multiply or divide. Left to right. The last thing we do is add or subtract. Again, left to right. Let's go ahead and draw an arrow going downward. And so let's look at these notes. Whenever you have a series of operations, now remember our operations are add, subtract, multiply, divide. We have 4 operations. Whenever you have these various operations in one problem, you're always going to do inside the parenthesis first. Then you look for your exponents wherever, whether it's in the front or the middle, you look for your exponents. And then you're going to multiply or divide. Now, you don't always multiply first. Sometimes you may divide first. It depends on whichever one goes left to right. If you were to have 2 parentheses, you would do the one on the left first. Always left to right. The last thing we do is add or subtract, again, depending on the order of the problem. Sometimes you may add first, sometimes you may subtract first. It just depends on the order left to right. Now sometimes this is abbreviated as PEMDAS. PEMDAS, we still put the arrow. PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So you could call it PEMDAS, or in the lower grades, we call it my dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Notice how the M and the D are next to each other. The D is not underneath because multiply and divide are at the same level. Same thing for adding and subtracting. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Okay. In this problem, I look at my order of operations and I do not have any parentheses, but I do have an exponent. So I'm going to have to do my exponent first. Now, as a teacher, I always show my work. I copy the original problem down. And I'm going to indicate, I can use a little V, a caret symbol, to indicate the operation I'm going to perform first. Now remember that 3 to the 2nd power is 3 times 3. I don't show my work here. I can work it out over here on the side. I'm simply going to put the answer underneath. So we did our exponents first. Copy everything down. Okay. Now I have subtraction, addition, and multiplication. As we look at our PEMDAS, next we're going to multiply. So 16 minus 9 plus 8. Now in the last step, I have a subtraction and I have addition, which are at the same level, but remember I need to work left to right. So I'm going to work on subtraction next. And the last thing we do is add. Let me double check my work. 3 to the second power is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. 16 minus 9. Okay. Now notice how I show my work underneath. I do not put an equal sign and go across. We always show our work underneath. The final answer should be on the bottom. Okay. Let's look at another example. Okay. Following my PEMDAS, I'm going to work inside my parentheses first, which is 12 minus 5, which is 7. Copy everything else, and we're not going to do 2 steps at one time. We only perform one operation. The next thing I'm going to do is my exponents, and we know that 4 to the second power is 4 times 4. Okay. There is no multiplication, so the next thing I'm going to do is divide. 10 divided by 5 is 2. The last thing I'm going to do is add or subtract, but remember, left to right. And then the last thing I do is subtract. Notice how many steps it took me. Here's my original problem, and then it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you count the answer. And that's how many steps. Now, normally in a classroom, I would not be that strict. I would be a little bit strict because they have to show me some work. It's not a calculator problem. My goal is to have them to perform the various operations. However, you and I, as teachers, as math teachers, have to show our work step by step. Okay, we have room for one more. There we go. We always do our parentheses first. So 4 minus 1 is 3. I'm going to keep my parentheses because it's to the second power. Copy everything down. I continue with my exponents. 3 times 3 is 9. Now the next thing I'm going to do is multiply or divide left to right. And in this case, I'm going to divide first and then I'll multiply. And I'm not going to be in a hurry. I'm going to show my work step by step. Next, I'm going to multiply. The last thing we're going to do is add and subtract left to right. Let's make sure we emphasize that. On the left, I have addition in this problem, and then I subtract. Let's double check our work. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay. If you count the original step plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more steps. Okay. If you need additional examples, you can feel free to copy some more in the back of your notebook in the notes section. So these are the last two topics in this unit: properties of whole numbers and the order of operations. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this lesson.